Now, the Biden administration has engaged in many executive orders and actions. Some of them are constitutional. Others, maybe there is some question about the legality of them. Joining us right now is Executive Director and Senior Attorney of the New Civil Liberties Alliance. Mark Chenoweth is here to help us unpack some of the fight against some of the Biden executive orders. We just recently heard that 12 states filed a lawsuit against his administration over his climate executive order. Mark, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Answer.
Good morning. Great to be with you this morning.
It's really nice to talk with you again. I think our head is spinning. It's today marks the year anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic and everything that has happened in government as a result, including President Joe Biden. I think it kind of stems from what happened 1 year ago today. Now, as Joe Biden went into office, everybody was marveling at the sheer number of executive orders and actions that he took. Today, Mark Chenoweth, what is the number? What is the exact count of what he's done so far?
I don't know if I have the exact count for you, but we're right around 40 and counting. It's a breathtaking avalanche of executive action.
Now, the New Civil Liberties Alliance was launched because basically to keep an eye out, to sue federal, state, local governments, and to protect constitutional freedoms from violations by the administrative state. What do you think is the most dangerous executive order that has been passed so far by President Biden?
Boy, that's a tough one because there's a few candidates. But one that jumps to mind right away is that he rolled back what the media liked to call the travel ban that had been in place from President Trump. And this particular executive order from Trump had applied restrictions and increased vetting on travel from several countries where the U.S. lacked the ability to conduct adequate vetting of folks before they came over. And this included countries like North Korea, like Venezuela, and also countries like Iran and Syria. It was called the Muslim travel ban sometimes in the media, but that was extremely misleading because it did not apply to dozens and dozens of Muslim countries, and it applied to countries like North Korea, where I believe the only mosque is in the Iranian embassy.
I'm sorry. That completely caught me off guard.
Don was waiting for you, Mark.
Didn't even know that. All right. So your organization, the NCLA, which is the New Civil Liberties Alliance, a civil rights group founded by prominent legal scholar Philip Hamburger to protect constitutional freedoms from the violations of the administrative state. And in your bio, you describe yourself as somebody that's seen the administrative state from several different perspectives. As folks who are outside looking in, what would you tell us about the convergence of the Biden administration and the administrative state that was probably the reason that Donald Trump was not able to get the majority of his agenda accomplished? They kind of stepped back into the shadows. They obstructed from afar, and now what we have is a convergence between policies that I would say they're friendly to with the operators that are making this happen. What do we have to look forward to over the next 2 to 4 years, given this toxic environment for policies that I don't think are friendly to the taxpayer and sort of everyday Americans?
Yeah, it is a toxic stew. You're right, and I think obstruction is the right word. The contrast, if you will, between what happens when the administrative state exists under a Republican administration and when it exists under a Democrat administration like President Biden is a stark difference because they were obstructing things that President Trump was trying to do across the board. The sort of hashtag resist mentality was widespread among federal government employees, even on policies that a majority of Americans supported. And then it's the reverse now, where the convergence maybe is a good word there too, that you do see the administrative state bending over backwards to accommodate the policy requests and desires of the Biden administration. So what does that mean for the average American? It means that some of these policies that have never been passed by Congress are going to not encounter any resistance from the bureaucracy as President Biden is trying to administer them. And yet, if Congress has never passed them, they're not supposed to be binding on American citizens. And that's the main issue with executive orders. They're not supposed to be binding outside the executive branch. But if if the bureaucracy goes along, then we have a problem.
Well, let's explore that a little bit more. Mark Chenoweth is here. He's a senior attorney, executive director of the New Civil Liberties Alliance. And Mark, I am not a senior attorney, and thus far I have not been offered a job from the New Civil Liberties Alliance. But I am an average citizen. I am a concerned citizen who is lucky enough to have this platform. And one thing that has concerned me, and it is not a Republican or Democrat thing, is that when our presidents can't, or our executive branch can't seem to get it together, to get Congress together, to get Democrats and Republicans working together, they sign these executive orders, and then they're immediately unraveled. You had Obama's executive orders unraveled by Trump, Trump's executive orders unraveled by Biden. This doesn't seem to be efficient governing, and what you just said intrigues me. You say that these executive orders were never meant to actually govern the American people. They were meant for administrative use. So why is there no pushback? I know we've had some attorneys general write letters complaining to Biden, but where is the real legal pushback coming from?
So the legal pushback might take a little bit because the executive orders themselves, in many cases, are ordering an agency to do something. And the president ordering an agency to do something isn't in itself necessarily a problem. It's if what he's ordering to do doesn't have any statutory authority behind it, then once the agency acts, that agency action is going to hurt somebody, and then that somebody will have standing to sue. So the issue right now is until the order actually harms someone, there isn't standing to sue. So, like, for example, canceling the Keystone Pipeline is a good example. It's probably not the executive order itself that cancels the pipeline. It's some subordinate action that happens in response to that executive order, and then that will create the basis for a lawsuit from the Keystone Pipeline Company or perhaps the union who represents the workers who want to work on the Keystone Pipeline Company, Keystone Pipeline, et cetera.
Again, looking at your mission, you end with preserving and restoring America's fundamental rights. First Amendment rights are probably, along with the Second Amendment, the cornerstone of what makes America unique and protects us from government. There were a lot of Americans that were expressing their First Amendment rights on January the 6th that are now the subject of the only thing that I can call a witch hunt. There are people that didn't even go into the Capitol building that simply wore garb that might have confused them with being quote-unquote militia. Those folks are being called terrorists now. Where is the outrage that there is a stark double standard between the way the Department of Justice and the FBI are handling those people and the thousands of individuals that even Kamala Harris bailed out? Some of these people that have been arrested since January 6th aren't even being granted bail. They're sitting in prison, unable to do anything. Where are their rights, and why is there no outrage about this?
Yeah, violence everywhere is wrong. It shouldn't matter to the FBI or any other law enforcement agency where that violence or where that riotous behavior occurred, and yet there does seem to be a little bit of a double standard between some of the behavior that we saw at Lafayette Park last summer, some of the behavior that we have seen burning down buildings and so forth. There was an article this week in the Wall Street Journal about automatic license plate readers and how ALPR scanners have been used to track down basically anyone who was in Washington on January 6th, regardless of whether they were at the Capitol or not, and regardless of whether they went in or not. And that kind of tracking technology is the kind of thing, putting aside what it's being used for in this case, there isn't a warrant that goes along with that kind of search, and warrantless search is one of the things that NCLA is pushing back against. We actually have a lawsuit against ALPR readers in the state of Florida, and so we're pushing back against some of that technology. And but you're right to be concerned about the difference in law enforcement. It needs to be even-handed.
Mark, we are out of time, but I would love to have you back to talk about what NCLA is doing at the state level, because we are in California and there is so much pushback over the executive overreach that was used by our governor, and I know that is the same tune in many states. Will you come back and chat with us about that with COVID-19 restrictions?
I would be delighted to chat with you, and folks can go to our website at ncla.legal in the meantime if they want to learn more about any of our cases.
And nclalegal.org, I'm looking at that as well. NCLA,
Yep.
the New Civil Liberties Alliance, Mark Chenoweth, the senior attorney and executive director. And Mark, we'll have you back to talk about Gavin Newsom and a few of these governors that are in the hot seat now. Thanks so much and be well.